Hi, welcome to Star Power Alchemy YouTube. My name is Alejandra Sofia, bringing to you the astrological news from the macrocosm to the microcosm of you to help you navigate your reality in the times we are living in. Today I'm tuning in to Mercury Retrograde from July 7th until July 31st, 2019, and I'm tuning in from today, July 7th. And so I've cast a chart for the hour, the minute that it goes retrograde today, and it's at 4:14 p.m. Pacific time, and I'm highlighting several key aspects in the chart that gives me a sense, a strong sense, and a viewpoint into the energetics of this particular Mercury retrograde and the process that we're collectively and personally undergoing. So I'm highlighting the conjunction Mercury is making. There's a key conjunction Mercury is making, and then an opposition and a trine and a quincunx. And then also most powerfully would be the degrees that Mercury is going retrograde in. So Mercury, let me describe who Mercury is. First of all, Mercury is the first responder of the zodiac. So the first responder of the planetary system, of the mythic archetypes, and it is a impulse of connecting. It is an impulse that has to do with of learning, of being engaged with the world, with this physical reality, and receiving intuitive and mental and emotional, even emotional impulses, because they're the connections that we're constantly making in our brain, the stimuli, but the most important thing, and all the information that we're picking up unconsciously and consciously. And so this is important to understand, that the connections that we're making inwardly, that we're using to identify with, Mercury's a communicator. and it's on all levels. Mercury, you know, here I am communicating to you. My Mercury is active right now and speaking, and while I'm tuning in and I'm making my connections and I'm communicating inwardly and making all these connections to the places that I commune with, with the planetary beings, with nature, being out here in nature and being supported, and all these physical, mental, emotional, spiritual communications that are happening simultaneously, and Mercury's here really to receive that. And so the glyph of Mercury, it actually shows, like, it's like the winged Hermes, Quicksilver winged Hermes, that has like a little helmet. And really what it is, though, it's the circle with the crescent moon over the circle, the symbol of oneness, the symbol of wholeness, the symbol for the sun, and it's holding up the moon, the moon that is receiving cosmic wisdom. So through the personal vessel of each one of us, the body, the human blueprint, is a vessel of reception and communing and communication. So Mercury really is a communer, and then the glyph itself, the symbol for Mercury, sits on that. So there's the crescent moon, the circle, the crescent moon, and then the cross, and the cross is Earth. That's the symbol for Earth. And so it really is about, here we are on Earth. It is the channel. Mercury's the channeler. Mercury's the channeler, the communicator. And so you opening up your channel and to all of who you are, to really receive and communicate yourself in a way in which you're holding yourself in a connection with wholeness is really key for Mercury. And but that's not always what's happened. I mean, clearly we're in a situation on Earth where there's just a lot of disconnection from source. And so what happens to Mercury when it isn't connected to source? It gets a little mental, it gets a little schizophrenic, it gets a little crazy, it gets a lot ungrounded, and moves quickly. And especially in the world that we live in, that's a very, on the go, keep it going, actional. And at least, on the West Coast of the U.S., there's, and the more population, the more people are on the planet, the more there's, communication happening, energy happening. And so Mercury is really the one that's picking up on all the energy. So Mercury is the one that needs to really get grounded, because it can be prone, very, very prone to being too impulsive, making quick decisions, as well as if you're not thinking consciously for yourself, hooking into voices of the past and communicating from that level. So that is why when Mercury goes retrograde, it's important, because it turns the energy inward, that it is an important time to take the time to slow down and feel, and it's like a break. Like we really do need vacations and times to pause, and we can't necessarily do that in the way that we ideally would like to do that, like go on a Hawaiian vacation or a vacation somewhere and spa, but for 3 weeks, wouldn't that be amazing? But we can reduce things, we can slow down. I really believe that that's possible, and even if that means learning how to slow down for 5 minutes a day, and just to connect in and commune in with a deeper place, to feel what is bubbling up, because that's really what Mercury retrograde wants to do, is to feel into what's bubbling up and what needs to shift. Because of when any planets go retrograde, especially the personal planets, it's a time of change and making new decisions. So these next 3 weeks, we're going to be making some new decisions, and we're especially going to be making these new decisions in after Mercury goes direct on July 31st, and moves us right into July 31st. Mercury goes direct. July 31st, we have the new moon in Leo, and the new moon in Leo releases us from the eclipse season of July, in which we have a total solar eclipse on July 2nd that just passed, and then we have a total lunar a partial lunar eclipse, the full moon, on July 16th. And so on July 31st, we're getting released in a big way. We will have gone through a lot of openings potentially, with relationships and feeling and unhooking and getting some insight into how we're holding ourselves in tightly wound and not connecting and communing with the people we love with our own hearts. And so potentially in August, so there's a beautiful butterfly. I wish it would fly over here. Bye butterfly. So then in August, we're going to be opening up and really making some new decisions in August, and there's some big aspects happening then as well. So to tune into these next 3 weeks and the significance of it, it really keys on what are you personally doing with your energy. Now we have a conjunction, a strong conjunction of Mercury with Mars on today, when the imprint of Mercury retrograde officially happens, the moment it goes retrograde. Mars is conjunct Mercury. And so that conjunction is very powerful. That's going to be leading the way for the next 3 weeks. And that has to do with your energy. Like Mercury and Mars together, they're personal planets. And part also what makes the next 3 weeks very interesting is that Mercury is going to retrograde back over and make three conjunctions with personal planets. It's making first the conjunction with Mars, and then it's making a conjunction with the Sun in Cancer, and then it makes a conjunction with Venus in Cancer in these next 3 weeks. And so that says a lot about personal connections. And because it's going through the signs of Leo, it's retrograding from Leo into Cancer, and then it stations on July 31st. That's when it moves out of retrograde and in direct motion, and it's at 24 Cancer, and then moves back over all the degrees it just went retrograde in, back to go back into Leo. So that's the potency of that. Is what's getting charged up are the inner channels of what I feel here, because of we're activating the beginning degrees of Leo. So it's the really nascent, journey of the early journey of Leo, and then the later journey of Cancer. And I say later because it's the last degrees of Cancer, and in fact it is the galactic degrees of Cancer. So galactic degrees come from, you might be wondering, what the galactic center is 26 to 28 SAGiTTARiUS. And so the galactic center, and literally the center of our galaxy, that's the degrees that it's activated by. Those degrees emanate through all 12 signs. And so they become each sign has a galactic corridor at 26 to 28 degrees. So Cancer's galactic degrees are being activated by this Mercury retrograde. And what I tuned into here with that is unhooking personal ego identity that creates separation and coming into galactic tribal or cosmic tribal identity, which is wholeness identity. So and being that Mercury, as it's going retrograde back over the sun and back over Venus, it's really bringing us through an awakening, an emotional awakening in our own hearts, in our own being, in our own tribe, in our circles of people, the people we love, friends, and all the circles we've ever belonged to, and just remembering. There's just a lot of potential for remembrance and feeling and being grateful for and communicating where you haven't communicated, or where you need to communicate, or where there needs to be a response, where there's been too much space between. And you know, people that you're thinking of, people that you're feeling, because they all the places that you need to speak to that haven't been responded to. You know, maybe there's relationships or things that you haven't said, or things that you feel like you want to clean up. This is a time of honoring that and really listening and tuning into that. And because of the remembrance that's inside of Cancer, remembering the people who helped you along the way, and also it also will help you unhook from any programs of not feeling loved. Like, remember, we're all going through that too, that the more we can connect into, like, oh wow, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling. That person has that same, it's a very similar experience of feeling alienated and not belonging, and allow that to open you up to create more compassion and empathy. So in this Mercury retrograde chart, I mentioned that there's the conjunct, the actual chart itself has the conjunction with Mars. Mercury is in conjunct Mars. The sun plays, it's really important, the sign that the sun is in, and that's Cancer. And so the Cancer sun is in an energetic of a total eclipse, because this new moon, the new moon that seated on July 2nd, is also part of the energy of this whole month that Mercury is going retrograde in. So the Cancer sun is making a conjunction to the North Node, which is directional, which is destiny. And so that's potent. So there's a feeling of direction, and Cancer is saying you've got to move in this direction in two powerful ways. The sun, which is also destiny oriented, and the North Node, destiny oriented, directional, coming into the fullness, the sun of who you are. And then it's in the fullness of the moon, because Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's also ruled by the asteroid Ceres, which is the mother, the provider, the caretaker. So there's this real feeling of expansiveness in that energy and you can actually view, there is a way in which Cancer is expansive, and it's not traditionally viewed that way. I'm offering this as a perspective, and most importantly, because we are in a Jupiter Sagittarius year, and Jupiter is making a key aspect to this Cancer sun right now through this Mercury retrograde chart, and in this time, in this month of Cancer, Jupiter is making a quincunx. And it's Jupiter is also a destiny oriented direction, visionary, and wants to move forward and release the past in a positive way. But in order to do that, we can't be in denial of the past. We can't be in suppression of the past. We have to do it in a clear way, and create wholeness in ourselves, to really, so through the mechanisms of that is really coming into peace and acceptance with situations, with memories that you might be holding, trauma that you're holding, any dramas that are unfolding inside of you still in your memory banks, and they need to get cleared out. That's what this Mercury retrograde is really potent for, is to honor and hone in. So look at that word, right? The honor and hone, H-O-N. It's just that there's something there of what honoring does. And honor lives in the heart. Honor is part of the technology, the soul technology of our heart, as is respect, as is reverence for life, as is gratitude, as is compassion and empathy, and as is courage. So courage to be you, courage to communicate you, and and to communicate it with heart, with the fullness of heart, with a strong heart, with a clear heart, so that it can be communicated in a spirit of connection. And I think we all know what it's like to be communicated to into a spirit of non-connection. And it's really mean, it's really unkind, and it creates separation, and defense mechanisms immediately build up, because that's what gets activated when any kind of communication happens with that kind of discord energy of separation. There's no feeling of connection. So that's the teaching right now. It's a really powerful cutting edge of as you are releasing yourself from any kind of isolating, insular feelings, it opens you up to your connections that have always been, you know, and even however your relationship unfolded with your caretakers, your guardians, your mother and father, your parental figures, and however you're holding them, it's to, and also to hold, I also feel too, but because Cancer is so culturally affected, it's very affected by the culture and the attitudes of the culture, because again, we're born to circles of people, we're born to circles of belonging. So again, for example, you're born to your parents, and then you're born to the times that you're born into, and you're born to the culture you're born into, you're born into your ancestors, you're born into a whole lineage, you're born into, you know, whatever, if you have a religion, you know, that you might be born into that, or you don't have a religion, and it's, all those things are like the circles you belong to, and then of course, the school you belong to, the state you belong to, wherever you're living that you belong to. There's circles within circles and of circles of belonging, but there's no greater belonging than the belonging to the universe, the belonging to the earth, the belonging to this holistic system. And that's what I feel really wants to happen, is for your heart, for your being, for your emotionality to really embrace a galactic membership. And that word might feel too like off-putting to you, but just look at it. I really feel you can Spockify this, and I do mean Spock. Dr. Spock, to Spockify, to really put reason to this, that we are a part of this universe, and the science proves it. The science, every day there's more information coming out about how connected we really are, especially if you're listening to anything about neuroscience and just cutting edge information that is really connecting our worlds in a way that what used to be very invisible is now becoming so visible. And although there might seem like there's only air and emptiness right here between me and this tree, there's actually, what we're finding out is that it is rich with energy and electromagnetic energy and photonic energy, and we are pumping with life. And so that's the as you reason with yourself and reason your way out of, and through feeling your way out of any kind of bind you've been in with yourself, of where you haven't been showing up to your fullness, that's what's calling you forward. And that's where I see these really important decisions being made that are keying on acceptance and understanding and honoring and forgiveness, and so that you can release and let go and embrace and open up your heart. Because when the moon is hurt, the moon is naturally like this. I mean, you can't really fully see my arms, but like the moon is like this. It's just all embracing. It lands in the earth, and it's receiving the connection on a deep subconscious level. And that is why the childhood years, the time in your mother's womb is extremely important as well, because you're soaking it up. You're soaking it up, all the messages, and then turning meaning into the messages. And so that's why unpacking the messages that you like, really keying in and honing in on those messages that have turned into negative self-talk are really important, because that negative self-talk separates you from you and separates you from your tribe. So it is so important for you to become friends with yourself, like really become friends with yourself. And that is going to bring you into connection with your friends, your friend groups, and your relational groups. And Cancer is hugely relational, and that is part of what gets tripped up inside of Cancer, is that it does end up it ends up building walls immediately towards connections when it gets hurt in the early stages of life. And so Cancer is a very, very sensitive sign. And so that's what makes this Mercury retrograde so interesting, because Leo, the root fire, core self-conviction, core connections getting fired up through this channel of Mercury and being conjunct Mars too, Mars and Leo. It's really firing up the inner will channels. And Leo's a fixed sign. Leo is fire and fire, whereas Cancer is fire and earth. And so that it's got it's a water sign, Cancer, and it's got a secondary element of earth. And with Leo, it's fire with a secondary element of fire. So it's a really strong core. Fire symbolizes the solar plexus, and the sun, and you radiating the archetype of the hero as well, of you being your own hero, you being your own superhero, and you opening up to all of who you are and embracing your individuality and really beaming your individuality. So your expression and who you are, your style, your particular expression. So the thing with Leo and being a fixed sign is that it's willing to be who it is. When Leo is pulsing with itself, it's like it's not going to cower over anybody else's power. It's going to you're going to walk into a room, no matter how powerful and amazing the people are that are in the room. You're there as well, and you're not going to like sink back and feel lesser than other people. You're going to be all of who you are and inwardly know, because the positive state of Leo is always filling yourself up from the inside out, filling yourself up with positivity, positive affirmations, knowing what you want, knowing who you are, and playing in the fields that you love to play in, your art, Leo's absolutely about playing and doing what you love. So that's getting very fired up through this Mercury retrograde conjuncting Mars, and then it's going to go back into the sign of Cancer and then make the conjunction with the Sun and Venus. And so Venus is relational. Sun is a sense of identity. So it is about how you come more into your own identity in a way of where you're like, this is who I am. I've been holding back on these parts of myself and feeling like I can't be these things, or afraid to be these things, or I was taught to be these things, and I've been holding this negativity towards such and such a person in my life, or society or culture, all these things and I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to be, I don't have to be like everybody else. I can be who I am. And so as you are favoring yourself, favoring who you are, favoring the things that want your attention. That's what Mercury wants to hone in and also release and let go and come into a circle of belonging and connection. So that the fact that Mercury is going to be making that conjunction to Venus and Cancer is it's a time to commune with your relationships as you're communing with yourself and your own heart and all the people and all the beings that live in your heart. And so another aspect to this Mercury retrograde is, I mentioned the sun. The sun in Cancer is conjuncting the North Node. So it's giving us a direction that we have to move forward in. We have to move forward with our emotions. We have to connect with our emotions, and we have to connect with our tribe. But we have to do it authentically. We have to learn how to speak our truth, and we have to learn how to receive other people's truth. And so that's the thing where I see Cancer really wants to get cleaned up. Like it's as you come into your own a stronger identity with yourself, it's easier to be in relationship with other people as well, and you don't need the codependency because you're standing on your own ground, and then you can come into what Cancer is really meant to be. It's meant to be a supportive energy, and caring for each other, and so also opening up to acts of kindness, acts of where you're leaning in more towards your relationships, and where can you give more and forgive more. That's going to open up energy. It's going to open up options as well, and possibilities and potentialities, because those doors that have been closed that you keep saying no to, no, but in a manner of shutting down your emotions, saying no to something. It's about, because Cancer again can really stay in some emotional inward slunking, And so when you that's why Mercury, where Cancer, when it is about emotional awakening, because it's something gets pummeled inside of you that's saying wake up, and or any kind of cathartic experiences, emotional experiences, like I want to be here. This is about getting you here more inside of yourself, to be ever more present with how you want to communicate yourself, how you want to share yourself with this world and with this earth and the people that you love. So I really feel this Mercury retrograde is about connecting with your people, but in a new way of like, I belong. I love you and you love me, and oh my gosh, if something happened to me, you would be devastated, and if something happened to you, I would be devastated. And just really feeling like I am loved. Oh my God, I have an impact. Oh my gosh, if I wasn't here at this party or at this circle, I actually can see how there would have been some empty space, or how I've been contributing. So it's really just about self-acknowledgement as well. Like, acknowledge your presence. Like, oh my gosh, I do have a significant impact. Oh my gosh, I just said that thing, and I'm acknowledging that I had that impact on my friend, on my relation, or my mom or my dad or whatever. Like, they really received that, and they need that too, just as much as I need that in words of encouragement. I can give that. So there's a opposition. I know I kind of skipped and went into another. I went somewhere else, and I want to get to this. That in the Mercury retrograde chart, we have Saturn conjuncting the South Node. So we've got the Sun and the North Node, very future forward, and then we've got the Saturn conjuncting the South Node, which is backwards, and Saturn's retrograde. So there's a lot of going back into the past. And with the Sun and Saturn in opposition to each other, there's Sun, which is self-identity, and then Saturn in Capricorn kind of keys on parental figures, governing agencies, and any institutions, any parental figures. But the most important thing here is to help open up a place you've been standing in opposition to yourself, so that you can come into accord with yourself and come into your own self-parenting, your own self-identity, because we need Saturn in Capricorn is about you coming into your own maturity, and it's a time of maturing. We're in a really important time of maturing ourselves, and that means, again, everything that I've been speaking to about making peace, and maybe you need to make reparations, there's things to repair. There's things to shift. There's things to say I'm sorry to. There's things to acknowledge. So there's a cleaning up our act. And I also see that on a collective level, that's something essential, and that we will be heading into ever more so, is that we do need to rectify the as the cliche, the saying of the sins of our fathers, the sins of our ancestors, and that we do need to make reparations. We do need to, on a collective level. I think we will be seeing that more over the next 10 years of like, we need to apologize to Native Americans. White people need to apologize. The government needs to apologize. The American government needs to apologize to Native Americans and make repairs. And that's just one example. We've got lots of examples out there. So being that this Mercury retrograde chart has Saturn in opposition to the Sun and a very strong nodal presence, that we are coming into like, whoa, I've got to acknowledge this, or I've got to say something here, and whoa, I've got to really take responsibility. That's what that is. That's what that is. The Sun in opposition to Saturn, Sun conjunct North Node, Saturn retrograde conjunct Pluto, and conjunct the South Node very strongly. I've got to take responsibility. And so that was where I see society changing, with more people coming into response mode. And that is who Mercury is. Mercury is the first responder. Mercury is the one that's like, it's making all these links and going, okay, coming into presence. Mercury is a planet that is about presence. And so if there's any unconscious, so Mercury is a planet that is about presence. If there's anything that's not being responded to, that's what this Mercury retrograde is potently about for these next 3 weeks. And I also want to mention that this process that we're undergoing with the through this July 2nd total solar eclipse, with Mercury now going retrograde, we're in a process until September 13th and the Pisces full moon, because that's the next time that Mercury is going to pass over. So Mercury goes direct on July 31st, and then it's going back towards all the planets it just made a conjunction with, and it hits them. It starts to make the conjunction with them with the Virgo new moon in late August. And so Mercury comes back. So just to describe this again, Mercury's conjunct Mars right now for the Mercury retrograde chart. Then and through Mercury retrograde, the next 3 weeks until July 31st, it's going to make a conjunction to the Sun in Cancer. It's going to make a conjunction to Venus in Cancer, and they're going to keep going direct, those planets, and Mercury's going to keep retrograding the Mercury stations, and then it catches up with them to make those conjunctions again, but in the sign of Virgo. So that's going to, and the very last conjunction it makes with those three planets, Venus, the Sun, and Mars, is with Venus at the very last degrees of Virgo. And so there's where I feel like in a new, that's where I see that August, September, we're making some really important new decisions. And that's what this potent time of Mercury retrograde that we're in, of just, coming back into communion and union with your relationships, with your feelings, your presence, your process, and love for one another, love for yourself and love for one another. And so there we go. Mercury retrograde, July 2019. Please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate beautiful comments. And if you'd like a reading, email me at starpoweralchemy@gmail.com. Sending you much love.